What's up, guys? I hate filming myself like this, but I figured I would make a little video to put with the recap of the game, the two games today. I'm walking around Bois Colombes, which is a suburb of Paris, and I need to go up and register. I guess I can't really turn this camera around. I was going to show you guys, but this is a little, this is what France and the Parisian area looks like right now. Actually, see that blue sky right there? We've seen very little of that the last, 2 months.
3 hours later.
I won the first game. You guys will see. It was a completely ridiculous game. It was crazy, unexpected. Yeah, was not expecting to win that game. But it is around, I think it's about 3:30, and I'm super hungry, so I have to go eat and then head back for the second round, which is at 5:30. And in the meantime, at least it's like gorgeous weather. I don't know if you guys can see this. Pretty nice. All right, so I am officially back home. It's midnight already. So yeah, I'm already running a little bit late tonight, but this is the first game I played of today, of the tournament. So very first game of the tournament. My opponent was Hamnuin Matisse. I'm not exactly sure on the pronunciation there. I believe it's a Vietnamese name, but it was a kid. He was a kid, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 years old. And his rating was 1785 FIDE. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So first game, I'm playing the white pieces. My FIDE rating is still at 1615 because you have to, I guess it takes like a month. There's like a month delay until your rating is updated. So I have been doing pretty good, but my rating hasn't yet been updated. So I'm still at 1615. Anyways, I have the white pieces. You know me, I'm playing D4 London system, and I've been playing this knight f3 line, kind of delaying the bishop f4. So my opponent goes for e6 and d5, and then an early c5. So we get a pretty typical London setup here. Nothing really too crazy up until I would say about b6. And I didn't know, this move to me looked okay. I didn't really see a way to exploit like those light squares, you know. I didn't see anything with like a pin or anything. So, but the game started getting, let's say, a little bit more interesting after castles. I went for a4. I'm happy to find these kind of moves now where I know that it's probably not, or could be the best move, but maybe it isn't. I know it's probably a good move though, is just grabbing some space on the queen side early on. I kind of figured that the computer would agree, and it looks like it did. The best move, it looks like the computer wants, is rook e1 first, but anyhow. Things started getting interesting, so, you know, takes here. Things started getting interesting after takes, knight back to d7, right? So I've been going for this position a lot. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been really liking sinking my knight into e5, as you're generally supposed to, and then taking back with the pawn, kicking the knight out, and just grabbing that e5 square with your pawn that kind of clamps down on f6 and d6. And it just so happens that the computer seemed to agree with that. So I took back with the pawn, knight d7, and then I went for queen g4, and this is where the game gets interesting, right? I always like when I get to go for some kind of attack in the London, and for me, it often comes out from, you know, the pieces migrating away from the king, where they're trying to either fight for e5 or something like that. But, you know, point being, the king's a little bit weak over here, right? Like I think Nelson from Chess Vibes has been mentioning the knight on f6. When there's a knight on f6, the king side is generally pretty sturdy. If the knight is not on f6, then that's kind of a sign that you can look for attacking chances. I have the bishop lined up on that nice diagonal for the moment. Black's bishop is not opened up. My pieces are looking definitely okay. I was big time debating. I think I took more than a few minutes in this move deciding whether I wanted to go queen g4 or queen h5. And let's just see, actually, queen h5, what would the computer mark this as? I hadn't checked this exact move. So yeah, okay, so that's good. So I during the match, I thought to myself, okay, I usually play queen h5, and I remember the computer several times saying that queen g4 was the best move. So, I calculated it. I saw that, okay, well, queen g4, I am kind of threatening bishop h6 at some point, and I'm still keeping pressure with the light square bishop. And then I was looking at this knight c5 move. I saw it, and then I kind of, just stuck calculating all these different lines, and so I kind of forgot about it until they played it, and I thought, oh, wait, should I have really worried about this move? And it turns out, white is still actually has a comfortable advantage. I'm, as you guys can see, let's see, let me switch the view here. A good point up, right? The eval bar is favoring white here. And I went for, so in my head, I was thinking, okay, I don't really want to lose this bishop, but if I just back it up, I was really worried about d4. I just thought d4 looks bad for me. It opens up the light square bishop. If I don't take, it's going to get kind of messy. And if I do take, the queen gets in. There's this nasty, potential pins. And I just didn't want that. So I decided to go for this rook e3 move. And I knew that it was probably dubious. It's not like a typical plan that I've seen like this, especially not to defend and give up your bishop, right? I'm basically saying you can have the bishop pair. But he took, I took, and white is still okay here. But this is where I started to go wrong. This kid was, kids are funny. You can't always tell when they're super concentrated or not. Sometimes they're just looking around, looking at other people. They're just they're little, they're kids. Their attention spans are a bit different. And this is about where I was like, oh, geez, I should have really tried to calculate more, but I was for some reason having a hard time making use of my time and playing the best moves, but I wanted to play aggressively. I don't like playing passively. So I went for rook g3, which the computer actually agrees with. And again, white is totally fine here. They went for g6. They got to defend mate somehow. And because of this nice pawn that I have on e5, it's not so easy, right, to just stick something on f6. They play g6, just best move. And then I play bishop e3. And this is where the mistakes came in. It looks like, so let's see here. The computer wanted knight b3 instead. And I was looking at this with ideas of going knight d4. And there's some decent squares to hop into. But if not, you got this solid knight on d4. I think that I was thinking, okay, bishop, yeah. I think I was worried about if I move my knight towards the king, which I do want to do eventually, go, knight f3. I'm really worried about this move rook c4. And so I want to be able to use this knight. I think that was my process, is just move the bishop back, which it turns out leads to bishop h4. And I saw this move. I wasn't worried about it because I figured, yeah, but my knight isn't on f3. I needed to be careful not to trap my rook. I was careful not to do that. So I went rook f3, except that this is a mistake, and this is where my opponent spotted the mistake. Immediately, I thought, oh crap, I just lost the game. I just threw the game. Bishop h2, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting skewered. That's it. That's probably the game. My opponent is probably strong enough to win this. Kind of funny that you're here, though, is that the best move is to just let them take your rook and go knight f3, because I guess the pressure with the bishop, the knight, and the queen, with some of these these dark square weaknesses, I'm guessing it's actually still pretty good, because even if they take and you take, white's better here. But I was not I hadn't really looked at that. I wasn't so confident. I just kind of a little bit of panic when I saw bishop e2, because it was already too late. I played rook f3, did not even see this move. I was playing a little bit too fast. Anywho, I decided to keep fighting on. I played g3 with ideas of, okay, take my rook. I'll still try to make something happen with my knight and my bishop. And then I really wanted to go h4 to just have an anchor to put some pieces on g5, because at the moment it's just not possible. That queen and bishop are really doing a good job controlling those dark squares. I went for knight d4. I thought, okay, well, I probably shouldn't be trading too many pieces now. And if I go knight g5, and in fact, let's see here. Knight g5 is not a move, yeah. So the best move here is actually queen f4. But yeah, I was looking at trying to make something happen, really attacking, because clearly I'm losing. I knew I was losing. I went for knight d4. instead. I figured, hey, let's just sink my knight in the center. It's not so hard to kick out. Of course, you can try to force some trades, but we'll see. And so I went for this. They went rook. He went rook c4, and I saw that move. Was kind of worried about it, but life went on. I played h4, and now basically, yeah, my idea is just like h4, maybe h5, try to bust open the king side and make something happen. And my opponent kept piling up on the c file. But for the moment, it's not so easy without sacrificing. Like, you can't really do much on the c file. So I was trying to keep everything, closed on the queen side, because if, of course, black breaks open, let's say, like one of the files and starts attacking down the queen side, like, it's just over. So I did my best to basically just keep everything closed and avoid trades. But then I saw after this, like, okay, as soon as I go knight d4, they're probably going to force a trade. I went for king g2 just to get out of this, because if I ever move the knight, they can take with check. And so I thought, well, let me move my king, and if they don't take, then I can maybe free up my knight. I was actually looking at before here. I was actually so desperate that I was, considering like knight takes e6, and there's no way. I concluded that it just did not work. It's not enough. I'm losing even more material, and there's no real compensation. Even if, like, okay, the king goes over and I take another pawn, didn't look good. Anyways, but I did want to free up the knight, so I moved the king out of that, out of the fire, the bishop. They took anyways. So, which is what they should do, right? They're trading. He's trading down while he's up on material, and then rook c8. And yeah, like at this point, I'm just kind of thinking, all right, well, let's see what we can do. And my clock too, guys, my clock was like, I think at this point, I even wrote on my score sheet. I think I wrote it on this one. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was the second one. Yeah, my clock was like, I was at least 30 minutes down the clock. I think at this point, I was already down to like 20, 25 minutes, and my opponent had a good hour on their clock. So the blitz and bullet and even rapid comes in handy when you learn not to panic with time pressure. Surprisingly, from here on out, I started playing really good moves, and we just headed towards this end game where I'm like, okay, well, I'm just desperately trying to just trying to survive, right? Just trying to make something work here. And slowly I started realizing, so a6 is a mistake, but the computer did like a5. Slowly I started realizing, wait a second, like, there might eventually be some tactics with bishop takes on, b6 and being able to push if the rook ever like vacates the 8th rank. I started looking at stuff like that just as like desperate, desperate, like, one last Hail Mary to try to make something work. While at the same time playing on the king side with the queen and the pin with these pawns and all that. I was eventually thinking about bringing the rook over to g1 since he put the queen in front of his king like that. But then I thought, no, because then they're going to go after my pawn. I'm going to keep my rook here and we end up in this position. And here I was thinking, okay, I can either take, which is totally fine probably, but then he's going to go, I was looking at this, queen takes h5 and then g6. And I just thought, yeah, I don't have to go back to try to prevent the queen from invading. I just really don't want the queen invading. But I also saw that even if he goes here, I was just like, I'm going to have to trade queens, and I don't really want to do that. So I went back, I went f5, not even seeing that it like can force a queen trade, which is what they did. Computer still thinks it's an okay move, but so they went queen g4 check. I had to force the queens off, and then they sacked the rook. They sacked material back, and I was looking at this. I was thinking to myself, they might sack the rook. So they took on d4, giving me back the rook, and now you guys can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's technically an even endgame. And the computer actually gives a slight favor to white here. I'm not sure if I knew at this point if I was doing okay or not, but it was right here. I thought, okay, well, they're going to infiltrate, right? Like, they're going to come down in the second rank. And then I started seeing that, like, wait a second, if they take that pawn and I get the c file, this could be really dangerous, because if my king gets up, right, I could either try to go for a checkmate with the king and rook, or I take that a pawn, and if I take that a pawn, it's basically game over. It's going to be really hard to defend that, because even if they try to attack my a pawn, let's say the rook eventually gets over here, I don't know, like something like here, here. Let's just say we waste a move, right? And I take the a pawn. Well, they can push the b pawn. That's probably what they should do. It'll probably just end up in a trade, but actually the computer says white's totally winning here. But yeah, taking here also defends the a pawn. So this little sneaky a pawn from the beginning of the game actually ended up being, and you guys will see what won me this game. So rook c2. I threw in f takes e6. Computer thought it was a great move because then I wanted to go. So yeah, I went king h5 here. I was debating king h5 or like maybe rook f1 because I wanted him to take on b2 and then grab the c file. I went king h5 just to bring my king closer. Computer didn't love that. It actually looks like I threw away the advantage, but then my opponent finds the best move, king g7. I go rook f1, but then they make a mistake, and actually rook takes b2 is a mistake, and I was almost sure that my opponent was going to go for that. I also thought, okay, maybe they'll go after the d4 pawn, but you know, guys, really, like in these end games, one thing that's been helping me is just really focusing on not playing passively. You have to attack. You have to attack and counterattack. In this game, I think that I easily would have lost the end game if I had played passively and not gone for attacking. And in the second game that you guys will see, same thing. If I had played passively, 1 or 2 passive moves, it probably would have been over. But I tried to be crafty here and look for ideas. So the computer does not like rook c1. It wants rook f6, which makes total sense. So rook c1 is probably okay, but it's a miss because rook f6 is just so much better. You can't protect that pawn. So you can go after my pawn, but it looks like takes, let's see, rook takes e6, rook takes a6, but then I grabbed this pawn, and I didn't go for this because I was just a little bit worried about these 2 outside pass pawns, but the computer seems to really like that. So that's why rook c1 was a miss. But I was thinking, if I get this in, right, and the king can't move forwards and my king gets to move up, I just saw something like, let's just say, I went here, let's say black, I don't know, goes over here, and then I get this, right? I thought, okay, this has to be good. This has to be good. I can take these pawns, and all the while I'm threatening checkmate. So we get to this position. They give me a check, which I had looked at as well. They go for the d pawn. Kind of worried about that because it comes with check. I decided to go king h5, which here now the computer agrees with because, okay, you can take that pawn, but then I'm going to take here and I win the a pawn and you're in big trouble. If you're not careful, I'm making a queen. The king is, I'm forcing your king all the way back to the 8th rank, right? So they give me another check. I go back and they could have repeated. Like I was ready to accept a draw here. I was noting down, okay, this is the second time we're repeating this position. You know, third time it is literally a draw by rules, by the rules. But they then went h5. They went h5 check, and my opponent still had like a good 40-45 minutes on the clock, but was playing pretty quickly. I guess, you know, kids also maybe lose patience sometimes. They don't want to spend like 20-30 minutes on a move. But yeah, I saw this move and kind of right away thought, I don't think this is a good move. I think I'm winning now. I was almost certain that I was winning. When I got rook c7 in, I was almost positive because I thought, okay, I'm going to take this pawn. I could see that I was taking that pawn, and I just needed to calculate if I trade the rooks off, who's going to win this race, you know, that pawn or the b pawn. And then after a while, I was really happy with this tactic. So I could have actually done it right away, and I missed it. In this position, you guys can look. I'll give you a few seconds. See if you can find the winning move in this position. Like, white's winning, but what is the winning move? There are a few good moves. One move is much better. So the winning move here is actually rook b7, which I spotted later because, yeah, rook is pinned to the king. And if you ever take me here, I get a queen. If you don't, let's just see, like if you try to get out of the pin, does it want us? So no, we don't take right away. We kind of hold that tension because the rook can never take your rook. So I just gobble up the other pawn. Now I have a pass pawn. You can't push your pass pawn or I take it. I found this later. Found this move later. So I actually missed this. Started, went rook c6 to attack the e6 pawn. It's not super easy to defend. And I just thought, well, I'm attacking this pawn. I'm attacking this pawn. How bad can this be? They went rook e7 and just some passive moves. And a little bit later, I finally spotted the rook b7 idea. So I went rook c8, best move. King moves over. Rook b8. And then finally rook b7. The rook is now pinned again. Can't move the rook. I can take it at any point. I just need to calculate. And luckily, guys, I'm seriously here at this part of the game. I'm like down to 4 or 5 minutes. And I think it's about 30 seconds per move. So I could have messed this up. I could have gotten nervous or something. But I was really happy with actually how I played the endgame with the time management. Because I got myself into time trouble. But how I managed that time trouble. And I was happy with, like, I don't know, the moves that I was finding and trying to find the forcing, path to victory. So here, basically what I was calculating was, okay, if I take and they take, who's going to win this race? I saw that, I think at this point, let's just see here. If I go takes, it's probably going to, yeah, it's going to say, oh boy, black's actually winning. The big mistake is my king is in front of the pawn. Maybe that came later when I was thinking about taking. Yeah, maybe it's here. So like if I take here, does it work? Okay, so now white is still winning. Looks like I'm winning this race. But I thought, yeah, exactly. I calculated this correct. That's cool. That I queen, they queen. I didn't want that. I did not want that. I didn't want to give them any chances. So I decided, you know what? I don't have to take that rook. I'm going to buy all the time I can get. I'm going to go g4. You can't push your pawn because I'll take it. So I went g4 and they actually did anyways. They went b5. I just took it. They can't really do anything. Here, this was like the last moment where I finally realized I won this. I'm winning because rook b8 check. I'm going to force your king down. You can't block. Force your king down so that I can go rook b7 to pin the rook again. Now my pawn is faster. I can take your rook anytime I want. This is what happened. So they went king c6. I took finally, and I won the race. They played on a little while. Got a second queen, and here my opponent resigned. Yeah, super unexpected win. I was really happy with that. The review, white, I played with 84.7% accuracy. My opponent had 80% accuracy, so it was a decent game. There were definitely some inaccuracies and mistakes. My opponent had one blunder. I didn't have any blunders, but definitely some missed wins here and some mistakes. So that's game one. I just got out of the second round of day one. Got a draw against an 1800, very strong opponent. And yeah, pretty grueling towards the end. I was running out of energy. I was pretty low on the clock, but I was also pretty convinced that it was a draw. And so I was pretty proud of myself to be able to hold down the 1800. So gonna go home and get some rest. And so anyways, see you guys tomorrow. Game two. This one was pretty cool. So my opponent this time is a guy named Paul Million. Pretty cool. His name's Million in French. And very strong opponent. He was 1800. I think it was like 18-1 to be exact. And I had like a little bit of time in between the first and second round. I had some lunch and I had a little bit of time to go over some openings. So what did I do? Out of all the freaking things that I could have studied, because I didn't know if I would be playing white or black, even if I'm going to study some openings or go over my openings for white, which ones, like which London line, it could be the Dutch, it could be the King's Indian, it could be a million different things. And if I go over my openings as black, is it going to be D4 or is it going to be against E4, Scandinavian? The one variation, guys, I happened to go over was what they played. It was what this guy played. So I was going through my phone. I have my little openings on this Google document, right? And the next on the list, the next thing that I hadn't really gone over in a little while was the Blackmar Gambit. So this, I don't really see this a lot against if they play E4 and then d5 Scandinavian, right? Pretty crazy because this also is not something I'm super booked up on. Anywho, super cool because I had just looked at this and they played the exact line, one of them that I just looked at. So we got to this. I'm still in theory here. I remembered all of this. Knight f3. It's all pretty normal, right? Like knight f3 to attack the pawn, knight c6 to defend the pawn, bishop f4 attacking again my pawn, and then here's where I took a little bit of time just to make sure, but I was almost positive that bishop f5 was the best move that I had just seen. So bishop f5, right, attacks the undefended knight. You kind of have to do something about that. And then bishop d3, and this was the last thing I could remember from the opening. I think it was the last move that I studied until I was like, okay, good enough. Was bishop d3, I knew was the best move, so I'm like, okay, my opponent's also playing the best move so far. Very strong opponent. And by the way, guys, this, well, I'll share with you guys the accuracy after, at the end. You guys can maybe guess. I went for bishop b4 check. Took some time here, and like really took some time because I was seriously considering castling long. The computer actually does want me to castle long. What I was worried about was this undefended bishop. They actually have knight d6 check, and I was just calculating this like takes with check, king b8, and then takes. And for some reason, when I saw this in my head, I was not super convinced that it would be good. Also, they have a bishop and a knight versus my two knights, and I don't know, I was worried maybe the bishop would be really strong, but it does actually look like the computer says castling is the best move. Bishop b4 check was still fine. My thought here was that obviously if they take, you get into big trouble because I can, let's see, first I take here first. What was my thought here? Yeah, takes, and then I take the knight. If you take me here, then I take your bishop and I'm up a piece. If you don't, and you take the bishop, well, now I win the rook. So I just thought that, okay, they cannot go c3. But my opponent went knight f to d2. I had looked at that move and considered it to be decent, but probably a little bit passive. They are moving their pieces backwards. And we basically just have this funny like standoff between the bishops, right? And all these pins. And these were positions that I'm not super familiar with. It almost reminds me more of like an e4, e5 game with all these pins. Yeah, it's really not something you see a lot with like d4, d5. And the Blackmar Gambit I don't see very often. So I was kind of in unfamiliar territory here, doing my best to calculate. Here I decided to go knight g to e7. Again, I was contemplating castling, and the same problem, or I thought it was a problem, was the knight d6 check, because again, takes with check, king moves over, and I just didn't like for some reason the king being forced over to b8. But again, the king wanted the computer wanted that, just castles. So instead I went knight gd2, which drops the pawn. I believe I saw that. I give a pawn back. I was up a pawn, and now we're even in material. They take on c2. It's not the end of the world because these are two still connected pawns, but you know, it is 2 pawns against 3 on the queen side. And it looks like the computer now is, you know, it's still even, but maybe a little bit better for white. I then castle. My opponent castles. And I decided to go rook a to c8 first. I was looking at a few different moves here, but I wanted to just, hey, it's a free tempo, and how bad can a rook on the c-file be? Like, the bishop has to move somewhere. It's kind of looking at, for some reason, bishop d6, but this is probably just a bad move. Oh, it is. It's a good move. Okay, because I was thinking bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes, but then I was like, oh no, they can take with check. But actually, yeah, okay, I can just take that back, so I clearly must have miscalculated. That probably would have been okay. They didn't go for that, though. And went back to bishop to g3. And this is where this is probably the happiest, or, you know, the proudest moment. I don't know. I can't talk. My brain is fried, guys. This was the proudest moment in this game for me because I think I took like 20, 30 minutes. I took a long time calculating this, and I did not really want to give up the bishops. Because this is, after all, a pretty open position. And yeah, I just don't want to find myself with two knights versus like the bishop pair and getting massacred. So I was really hesitant about doing that. There's obviously this bishop that is no longer undefended, but there's this standoff between these two light square bishops, and all sorts of stuff going on. I was thinking, okay, of eventually trying to take on c2, but I can't really do that since the bishop's defending. Okay, what if I go like knight b4 at some point, kick the bishop out, take on c2, all sorts of ideas, but nothing was really working. And then I saw, wait a second, what if I take here? What if I take here? They have to take with the knight. And if they take with the knight, then I can grab the bishop. So we trade a pair of bishops off. They have to take back. So all of this is forcing, right? And then I saw, then I can go knight b4. I'm hitting that pawn. How do you defend that? How do you defend that pawn? And if I take that pawn, now I'm hitting the pawn on b2. How do you defend that? And I just thought, wait a second, this actually looks pretty good. And then even better, I saw that after takes, they do still have this dark square bishop. And I thought it would be nice to trade down to just simplify, right? And get to like, a knight and two rooks versus a knight and two rooks, with me having like an extra tempo, or just, I didn't want that bishop there to complicate things. So I was happy that I saw, actually, after knight f5, you cannot hold on to this bishop. You're losing the bishop by force. You can't go, well, let's see. Actually, can they get away here? Or do they get trapped or something? Knight b4. Maybe they can survive with the bishop, but that looks like really silly. Yeah, because then like you can't even defend this pawn. So they gave me the bishop. They decided to go with knight f3. I grabbed the bishop. I thought to myself, okay, technically those are doubled pawns. I mean, it creates some space for the king, but technically those are doubled pawns, and I do not have doubled pawns. Maybe I can use that to my advantage. And then knight b4 was my idea. Here I was thinking knight b4, yes, you can take, but I can take here and I'm hitting b2. Actually, after I played this move, even though the computer does agree with this, it looks like rook f to e8 is the best move, but it sees knight b5 or knight b4 is acceptable, excellent even. After they took and I took, I realized, oh wait, this doesn't really work. I can't take. I don't think I can take on b2 because, let's see, it's white to play here. So what was I looking at? Yeah, so rook f to d1 attacks my knight, right? I take here. They bring this rook over. Oh no, rook d to b1 now. Yeah, because they can. And if they go here, I'll just take that rook. So they bring this rook over now. And I have to move the knight, and then they're infiltrating on the 7th rank. And I was like, ugh, I don't like that. And I can't infiltrate on the 2nd rank because of that knight. And so all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, maybe I can't take. And so this is another part of the game where I took a good chunk of time calculating, really long time. I got down, I think, to about 15 minutes after this play. Finally, though, I found the best move, which was knight e5. I was calculating knight b4, I was calculating knight c5, and I finally found knight e5, which it looks like is the best move. My idea here was that I can eventually land back on c6, but first maybe I'll get my rook over. Anyways, knight e5. Like here, I was thinking, yeah, that doesn't do anything, and then I'm threatening the fork. Knight e5, and then I was looking, though, at white's idea of knight f5. They're threatening the fork, and I have to be very careful because they can start attacking my knight. Let's say like, some random moves here. They're attacking my knight, and now the knight that was defending the d7 square, for preventing the rook from infiltrating, has to go away. And if they infiltrate and I am not able to counterattack, that's bad. So that's what was happening in my head. And so I went back. They did play knight f5. And here, again, this is where, remember early in the video, I said in the endgames, guys, not that I have been playing these perfectly, but I am pretty happy with my endgames because I see the difference in where when I was a weaker player, I would maybe panic. I would think to myself, I'm facing a really strong opponent. Of course, they're going to be better. They're going to see this stuff. I have to defend. Oh no, whatever. And I really this was a critical moment where I thought, no, I need to play aggressively. They are not attacking my knight right now. Okay. Yes, they are threatening the fork on e7. So what? Let them do it. I'm just going to move that rook. I was thinking of moving the rook somewhere over here, to another square. And I just thought, why wouldn't I just go rook c2? You know what? They're going to attack me. I'm going to attack first. And it turns out that was the best course of action, which, like, thankfully I played it. Rook c2, rook f to e1. So they were still finding the best moves here. And then I went knight c6, and I had calculated I knew that they were going to go and attack my knight. It was clearly the best move. And I had calculated knight c6. They do have this. And I thought, oh no. When I saw that, I was like, wait a second. Are they infiltrating? Are they going to get both rooks and infiltrate and win? But then as it was played, I started realizing, no, because how do you defend these pawns? I'm going to win these pawns. And actually, it doesn't matter even if you get both rooks on the 7th rank. I'm just going to keep my rook here defending f7 and chill and take these pawns so that, so yeah, you guys will see what happens. So this is what happens. They went for knight e7 check, forcing the trade, well, pretty much forcing the trade of knights off. And then the rook coming down to e7, they penetrate on the 7th rank, just like I said. But I calculated that, okay, even if you do though, I'm going to take this. Now go ahead and try to attack any of these weaknesses. You can start gobbling these pawns up, but what I'll do is just push this, and we're going to be forced to trade the rooks off at some point, because you're going to have to take that pawn. That's what I saw. And it did help give me confidence, because I think in this position, if you're not careful, I could have blown this. My opponent could have won. But I thankfully played this well. I decided to go for rook a1 check because the king is forced over this way instead of coming in through the center. I wasn't really sure if it was great, but I just thought this is probably a draw anyways. Then I went a5, best move, hallelujah. Rook d1, surprising, is best move. I just thought, like, I want to eventually get my rook over somewhere here. You know, I don't want to keep it stuck behind that pawn. This is going to be just fodder anyways. This is going to be distraction for the rook. So just like I said, the rook goes over to a7 to attack the pawn. I drop down because at least now, look, like my rook's defending the pawn, right? But actually why I'm playing this is because now I have a really nice central rook, and I want to eventually, you know, dislodge those powerful two rooks on the 7th rank. They play f3. I played g6. Saw that g6 was probably the best move. You obviously cannot play like f6 or anything like that. You know, play f6, you lose on the spot. You get mated. And h6, like my king doesn't want to go that way. I want my king going towards the center. Looks like the king or the computer actually likes h6. Okay, anyways, I went g6. They move the king up. I move my king up. My idea here was like, look, I'm just going to go get my king to f6. And you're going to be very careful with your rooks, because you move that rook, I'm taking this one. And so what? Now, like, what are you going to do? I have this totally defended. I'll just keep my rook here. You can give me a check. I'll just go back. It was probably a draw anyways. They did have, like, I was a little bit worried about them playing, like, let's say I make some random move and they ignore it. I don't know. I was kind of worried about this, of them clamping down and making it so that my king just could not escape. So that's why I went for h6. It looks like it was the best move too. King f6. They went g3, a4. Again, I was pretty sure that this was a draw, but I really, you know, it's intimidating when you're playing a strong opponent or a stronger opponent. Eventually I was like, look, they have to take that pawn. If I just start pushing this pawn, white has no other option but to take it. They have to, and that's going to let me attack and, you know, dislodge those two rooks. So I was like, you know what, let me just push this pawn. Just make sure that I'm not getting like mated or something crazy over here on the king side. That there's not some crazy pawn move, and I didn't think that there was. So I just pushed the pawn until they took it. And then I went, okay, now I'm going to block the checks. And I just wanted to bring my rooks over somewhere here to block the, you know, to block the checks from the other rooks and to prevent the rooks from infiltrating, again, from doubling up on the 7th rank. I went rook d6, best move, cool beans. And then rook e6, best move again, cool. Obviously, if they take, I'll just take with the king. I think, I'm almost positive taking with the king is best, and taking with a pawn would be a big mistake. Splitting the pawns, but the computer seems to like it. Anyhow, they went here. They refused to, or I went there, they refused to trade rooks. So then I went rook e8. And then here was the last moment where I was like, wait, whoa, let me be careful. Let me think. My opponent might have a trick here. And I had like 4 minutes on the clock. And again, I was pretty happy with my somewhat clutch play. I could have gotten really nervous. I could have like made some terrible move and thrown the game under time pressure, but I just relaxed and kind of looked at the position and what I know about endgames and thought, okay, like this is a draw. This is a draw. You know, you just have to play it right. In this position was the last time where I was kind of worried. I really had to calculate, make sure, because I thought, whoa, wait a second. If I go here, yep, there you go. If I had gone rook e7, g5 check, takes, and I am losing the rook. There's no way for me to continue defending that rook. And I thought, my opponent sees that. They're laying a trap. So I don't want to just go back because then they still keep their rooks doubled up on the 7th rank. Not the end of the world, but what I decided to do was go rook e7 instead, which looks like was, or sorry, rook 6 to e7, which was the best move. And because after check, takes, I just move over this way and I defend. And I was a little bit concerned for a second about like, wait a second, what if they start, I don't know, I can't actually go back. So like I have to go here. Oh my God, are they going to mate me? No, because I can just take there. But I thought, wait a second, I'm not like getting ladder mated or something, am I? Because my rooks are behind my king here. My rooks can't block the checks. But eventually I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm good. I was almost positive. I just got to play this. Turns out that it was the best move. And they moved their king down. A couple of these king moves, I was actually thinking at some point, maybe I could go over here and start threatening a checkmate. Like the king was really boxed in over here on the side. But thankfully I didn't do that because there was nothing ever. And yeah, then we get to this position. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep the king cut off. I'm not going to let you penetrate at all. You give me checks, I'll just move back. Like this is a draw. There's no way, unless you really make a huge mistake, that you can throw this. Just got to be careful. Probably not take, because you're going to be fixing those pawns and separating your own 2 pawns. So I held the tension, and we get this position. And then we repeated. We actually repeated twice. My opponent looked at me, shook hands. We just kind of understood. And it was a cool guy. We talked a little bit afterwards, and I invited him to the chess night, our chess nights. So yeah, guys, I'm 1.5 out of 2 so far. I honestly cannot complain because 97.9% accuracy for the white pieces and 97.8. So we both played a super clean game. And what can I say? Like I'll totally take the draw. I was happy to, survive and hold my own against a very strong opponent. 1800 FIDE is not bad. It's not weak, that's for sure. I mean, they played a nearly perfect game, so as did I. And so yeah, that's where I'm standing at the tournament so far. I was beat and tired. I have done tournaments before where I played like 2 games per day, but wow, it is draining. It is draining. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be posting the recap for the other 4 days. Stay tuned. I'll be posting tomorrow's video after the games. And wish me luck. All right, see you in the next video.